Imagine the moment when your last breath leaves your body. The heart monitor makes that continuous, prolonged sound. The doctors pronounce death. To an onlooker, it seems like it's all over. But what if I told you that at that very moment, your true journey is just beginning? An experience so extraordinary and transformative that it would make you reconsider everything you believe about life, death, and the purpose of your existence. If this message is speaking to you, don't miss the chance to connect with our community. Give your like right now, turn on notifications, and subscribe to the channel to receive every episode of this eye-opening series about the mystery of human and spiritual existence. Death is not the end. It's only a transition. It's a change of state, as natural as birth. While your physical body ceases its functions, something extraordinary happens to your consciousness. It expands. It frees itself. It awakens to a reality far greater than what our limited human senses can comprehend. The stories of thousands of people who've experienced near-death moments give us fascinating clues about this journey that we will all eventually take. In the first moments after the physical shutdown, something happens that many describe as a feeling of floating or an extraordinary lightness. It is as if a huge weight was suddenly lifted off your shoulders. The physical pain stops instantly. Your consciousness detaches from bodily limitations, and often you find yourself observing your own body from above with surprising clarity and lucidity. This is the moment when many report seeing the doctors trying to resuscitate, hearing conversations in the room, and noticing details that would be impossible for someone who is unconscious. It was like waking up from a very heavy dream, only to realize that the dream was physical life, said Michael, a 67-year-old man who suffered a cardiac arrest during surgery. I saw everything with impressive clarity. Colors were more vibrant, sounds sharper, and the strangest part, I could sense the thoughts and emotions of the people around me. I felt their worry, their focus, even the tiredness of the doctor fighting to bring me back. This first phase of the post-death journey is marked by an expanded awareness, where all the senses seem amplified and new senses awaken. The perception of time changes drastically. Many report that mere seconds in the physical world can feel like hours from the perspective of a disembodied consciousness. It's as though your soul is gradually adapting to its new state, breaking free from the physical limitations that once defined your experience of reality. What scientists call an out-of-body experience is just the first glimpse of the soul awakening. In this state, most people report seeing a silvery or energetic cord still connecting their consciousness to the physical body, an image consistently described in ancient spiritual traditions, from ancient Egypt to Eastern sacred texts. People often mention this cord as the final energetic connection which, once it finally breaks, marks the point of no return for consciousness. It is at this moment that the true transition between planes of existence begins. Most accounts describe an irresistible pull toward a bright and welcoming light. Not a light that blinds or hurts, but a luminous presence that conveys a profound sense of unconditional love, total acceptance, and complete safety. It is like coming back home after a long journey, a recognition of something deeply familiar that goes beyond the human experience. The light wasn't just in front of me, it was calling me, knowing me better than I knew myself, described Elena, a 43-year-old teacher who experienced a near-death event after a car accident. It was as if every part of me was seen, understood, and loved perfectly, without judgment, without conditions. All the masks I wore in life instantly fell away. It is interesting to note how this first phase of the journey varies according to each person's beliefs and spiritual development. Those who cultivated a spiritual connection during their lifetime seem to navigate this transition with more ease and understanding, whereas those who were firmly attached to a materialistic view of reality often experience confusion, resistance, and even denial over what is happening. Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, whose psychic readings about life after death are still studied today, explained that the mental and emotional state at the moment of transition profoundly impacts the soul's initial experience. According to him, death doesn't change anything except the way we perceive reality. The consciousness remains exactly as it was, with the same beliefs, fears, desires, and understandings. This continuity of consciousness explains why some souls remain temporarily stuck in intermediate states, unable to accept their new condition or too attached to people, places, or situations left behind. Others, however, are quickly drawn to higher dimensions, intuitively recognizing the path forward and welcoming the transformation with openness and curiosity. As the transition progresses, the critical second phase of the journey begins, the life review process. This is not a judgmental experience, as many religious traditions suggest, but rather a profound immersion into the totality of the just concluded existence. Imagine reliving every moment of your life, not just as you experienced it, but also feeling the impact of your actions, words, and even thoughts on everyone around you. During this review, your soul doesn't simply replay experiences, it feels them from multiple perspectives simultaneously. You experience the pain you caused to others, the joy you shared, the love you gave, and even the opportunities you missed. It is an experience of expanded empathy and a deep understanding of the complex webs of cause and effect that connect all lives. I saw my entire existence like an ultra-dimensional movie, said Thomas, a 58-year-old executive who experienced a near-death moment during a heart attack. There was no external judgment, but I felt everything, absolutely everything, that every person involved in my life had felt because of my actions. The moments I thought were insignificant often turned out to be deeply important, while achievements I once treasured seemed almost irrelevant from this new perspective. This review does not happen in a linear or chronological way. It unfolds in a dimension where the past, present, and even aspects of the future are perceived simultaneously. Your consciousness expands to understand patterns, connections, and hidden meanings that were impossible to grasp during physical life. It is a process of integration that many describe as intense, sometimes painful, but incredibly liberating and enlightening. It is important to understand that this life review is not punitive. There is no external condemnation or divine judgment, as many fear. Instead, your soul itself recognizes its actions in the light of a higher understanding, naturally feeling the need to correct imbalances and complete unfinished lessons. It is a process of self-discovery and self-assessment with a clarity that is impossible to achieve while limited by physical perception. After this initial review, your soul enters a phase of adaptation and discovery of its new state of existence. This adaptation does not happen instantly, but flows gradually as your consciousness expands. It's like learning to navigate a reality governed by laws different from the physical ones. Here, thought instantly creates reality. Communication occurs through a direct transfer of concepts and feelings without the limitations of spoken language. Time no longer flows linearly, but expands in multiple dimensions at once. Sarah, a 51-year-old nurse who experienced a near-death moment during complications in childbirth, describes this phase with contagious enthusiasm. It felt like I'd spent my whole life using just one sense, and suddenly all the other senses woke up at the same time. I could see thoughts as colorful shapes, hear emotions like music, and feel intentions as tangible textures. I realized that our physical reality is just a tiny fraction of what exists. During this adaptive stage, many report the presence of guides or helpers, beings of light, who assist in the transition and provide guidance. These guides often appear as familiar and loving figures who bring comfort and security. They may manifest as family members who passed on before, recognizable spiritual mentors, or simply loving presences that resonate with the deepest essence of your soul. Their role appears to be to help you understand and adjust to the new reality, answering questions and guiding the next steps of your journey. It is interesting to note how spiritual practices cultivated during physical life seem to greatly ease this phase of adaptation. People who meditated regularly, who cultivated altered states of consciousness, or who studied spiritual teachings report a smoother and more comprehensible transition. It is as if they had developed spiritual muscles that now prove extremely useful in navigating this new dimension of reality. I realized that my decades of meditation were not just a mental exercise, but literal training for this moment, shared David, a 72-year-old yoga instructor after a near-death experience. The ability to observe without judgment, to perceive beyond the physical senses, to expand consciousness, All these turned out to be essential tools for navigating the post-death environment. Gradually, as the adaptation progresses, one of the most profoundly moving moments of this journey occurs: the reunion with the group of souls to which we belong. This experience is consistently described as an overwhelming and instant recognition, a feeling of returning home so intense that it transcends any earthly gathering. Imagine reconnecting instantly with beings who know every aspect of who you are, not just from this life, but from your entire journey as an eternal soul. Beings who have shared multiple incarnations with you, playing different roles throughout countless lives. The mother from this life may have been your child in another, your enemy in a third, your mentor in a fourth. These relationships reveal themselves to be infinitely more complex, profound, and meaningful than we could have understood while limited by physical perception. Alina, who mentioned her experience earlier, described this reunion with tears in her eyes when she returned from her near-death experience. I instantly recognized every single one of them, even those I had never met in this life. It was like a cosmic puzzle where I finally saw the complete picture. I understood that I was never truly alone, that separations were merely temporary illusions, and that we are all interconnected in ways our physical brains cannot process. This reunion is not only emotional, but deeply significant for the soul's evolutionary process. In this group, there is a shared understanding of karmic patterns, soul contracts, and evolutionary purposes. It is like a spiritual family coming together after a mission to share discoveries, celebrate growth, and integrate lessons learned. There is no competition or comparison, only genuine warmth and joy for welcoming another member into the eternal circle. Spiritual traditions around the world have different names for this gathering of souls. In some Western esoteric traditions, they are sometimes called soul families or monad groups. In Eastern wisdom, they might be recognized as cosmic sanghas. Michael Newton, in his research on past life regressions, extensively documented these patterns of grouping and reunion, suggesting that these connections are among the most enduring and significant in our spiritual journey. With the warm embrace of this familiar group, the soul then enters a profound phase of learning, healing, and expanded consciousness. This is a time to integrate everything experienced during physical incarnation, a period to process lessons, heal lingering emotional wounds, and understand the greater purpose behind all that has been lived. In higher vibrational dimensions, access to universal knowledge seems to happen directly and immediately. There is no need to laboriously study complex concepts. Your consciousness simply tunes into that frequency and understands it instantly in its entirety. This process is often described as a gradual awakening to truths that in some way the soul always knew but had temporarily forgotten during immersion in physical density. Reflecting on his experience, Thomas shared, "In that state, I could access any knowledge simply by focusing my intention on it. It was as if entire libraries of information were available instantly. I understood the purpose behind every hardship I faced, saw clearly why I had to go through certain experiences, and how each challenge was carefully designed to catalyze exactly the growth my soul needed." This period includes vibrational healing processes that completely transcend our concepts of therapy or medicine. Emotional traumas, limiting beliefs, and dysfunctional energetic patterns are dissolved through the direct application of high-frequency love and consciousness. It's as if layers of density accumulated during physical life are gradually peeled away to reveal the soul's pure and radiant essence. It is during this phase that many deeply understand the purpose behind the suffering experienced on Earth. Events that once seemed traumatic, unjust, or senseless are now seen within a much larger context of consciousness evolution. There is no victimization or guilt, only the recognition that every experience, no matter how challenging, served as a catalyst for expansion and growth. Just as Sarah explained, I realized that the cancer I faced in my 30s was not a punishment or accident, but a carefully chosen opportunity to develop compassion and detachment. The most difficult relationships in my life were exactly the ones that contributed most to my spiritual growth. Nothing was wasted, nothing happened by chance. There was a sacred purpose in every tear I shed. As this process of learning and healing progresses, the soul goes through a fascinating period of vibrational integration, where experiences from multiple incarnations begin to merge into a unified understanding. This is a time of deep karmic resolution and recognition of the spiritual gifts developed over many physical journeys. The soul starts to notice recurring patterns across its different lives, understanding how certain challenges were revisited again and again until their lessons were fully learned. It was like watching several versions of myself play different roles in a grand cosmic drama, Thomas said. I realized that I had been both the oppressor and the oppressed, both the healer and the wounded, both the master and the student. Each role allowed me to experience different facets of existence, and together they formed a complex mosaic that revealed my true spiritual purpose. During this phase, many souls describe encounters with councils of beings of light, highly evolved entities that help with the integration process and future planning. These councils do not function as judgment panels, but as compassionate mentor groups offering expanded perspectives and loving guidance. With deep wisdom and discernment, they help the soul assess its evolutionary progress and identify areas that still need development. In the presence of these councils, the soul gains access to what many esoteric traditions call the Akashic Records, the vast cosmic archive in which every thought, emotion, and action of all lives is recorded. This access allows for an impartial and multidimensional understanding of the complex networks of relationships and experiences connecting all souls. Here, spiritual contracts are reviewed, commitments acknowledged, and greater purposes clarified. It is in this context that many souls discover their unique spiritual gifts and abilities, talents that transcend specific incarnations and reflect the purest vibrational essence of the soul. Some realize a natural affinity for healing, others for teaching or guiding, and yet others for artistic creation or manifesting new forms. These gifts are not mere talents, but expressions of the soul's essential nature, aspects of its unique contribution to the collective evolution of consciousness. Sarah shared, I understood that my ability to deeply feel the pain of others wasn't a weakness, as I once thought, but my most precious gift. It was the basis of my ability to heal, to connect, to understand. I saw how this gift had manifested in different ways across multiple lifetimes, as a healer in one, a priestess in another, a mother in several, and a nurse in this most recent life. As these insights crystallize, the soul faces one of the most significant choices in its journey, deciding the next step in its evolutionary path. For many souls, especially those who still have lessons to learn or karma to resolve in the physical realm, this means preparing for a new incarnation. For others, it may mean moving on to higher dimensions of service and expression beyond the cycle of earthly rebirths. The process of preparing for a new incarnation is much more conscious and intentional than our limited earthly perspective might imagine. Far from being a random designation or a punitive imposition, the next life is carefully planned as an opportunity for growth, precisely calibrated to the soul's evolutionary needs. In collaboration with councils of light and often with other souls from the familiar group, the soul selects the general circumstances of its next rebirth, the family, culture, historical period, main challenges, and the gifts it will express. Contracts are established with other souls who will play important roles in this new journey. Parents, partners, children, mentors, even apparent adversaries. Each of these relationships is designed to catalyze specific opportunities for learning and growth. I saw how my next life was being planned with immeasurable care and love, Alina recalled. I chose parents who would offer exactly the challenges and support I needed. I agreed to reunite with souls with whom I had unfinished matters. Even the major challenges were selected by me, not as punishment, but as precious opportunities to develop qualities that my soul still needed to refine. This planning does not predetermine every detail of the future life. Free will remains a sacred constant in every soul's experience. Instead, it establishes a context, a field of possibilities, and important checkpoints. It is like planning a trip with key destinations in mind, while leaving room to explore unexpected paths along the way. For souls that have completed their cycle of physical incarnations, a different path opens up. These souls often take on roles as spiritual guides, helping other souls still evolving through incarnations. Others might merge with collective consciousness groups focused on specific cosmic creative projects, from the formation of new planetary systems to the evolution of new expressions of consciousness. In his experience, David caught a glimpse of this possibility. I realized that I had completed my cycle on Earth, but my journey was far from over. I was shown a role as a guide for a specific group of souls still incarnating, many of whom had been my family in different lives. The idea of being able to watch over and inspire others on their journeys filled me with purpose and gratitude. As we move toward even deeper understandings of the soul's journey, we reach what might be called the Great Revelation, the recognition of the eternal and multidimensional nature of consciousness. In this state of expanded understanding, the soul begins to transcend even the notions of individuality that persisted in earlier stages, seeing itself both as a unique expression and as an inseparable part of universal consciousness. This transcendent perspective reveals that what we call death and life are simply different expressions of the same stream of consciousness. The soul understands that it never really was born, nor will it ever truly die. It only changes form, focus, and dimension of expression. It is like water that transforms into vapor, then into clouds, then into rain, only to return to the ocean while always remaining at its essence the same water. I had a vision of myself as a wave in the ocean, Michael shared. I realized that I was simultaneously both an individual wave, with a unique shape, movement, and expression, and also the entire ocean, inseparable from the whole. There was no contradiction in this dual perception. It was simply the most fundamental truth of my existence. At this level of understanding, the soul sees all of its incarnations not as sequential lives, but as simultaneous expressions taking place at different points of what might be called vertical time, a concept that transcends our linear understanding. Past, present, and future are recognized as constructs of perception, not absolute realities. All of the selves exist simultaneously in an eternal, multidimensional now. This cosmic perspective completely changes how we view death and suffering. What once appeared as separation turns out to be only a temporary illusion. What once seemed like loss is understood as transformation. What once looked like an ending reveals itself as a doorway to expansion. This understanding does not diminish the importance of the human experience. On the contrary, it reveals its sacred purpose as the field in which consciousness evolves. Thomas reflected, I understood that the universe is essentially consciousness, exploring infinite possibilities of expression. Every human life, every form of existence, is a unique and precious experiment in this cosmic exploration. Nothing is wasted, nothing is insignificant. Every experience contributes to the expansion of universal consciousness. It is in this state of cosmic understanding that many souls report a paradoxical experience. The more they expand their consciousness to universal dimensions, the deeper they appreciate the beauty and meaning of the human experience. From the perspective of eternity, every life, with its joys and sorrows, its challenges and triumphs, is revealed as a masterpiece of spiritual creation, an incomparable laboratory of experience and growth. Sarah described this paradox eloquently. The further I moved away from identifying exclusively with my human life, the more deeply I could appreciate its sacred beauty. I saw how every moment of vulnerability had been a doorway to genuine connection. Every tear held universes of meaning. Every act of courage, however small it seemed, sent ripples through entire dimensions. This recognition brings a new appreciation for the human project in its entirety. Physical life is not a punishment or exile, as some traditions have suggested, but an extraordinarily precious opportunity for the soul to experience densities and contrasts that are impossible in more subtle dimensions. It is precisely the limitations, the vulnerability, and the apparent separation of the human experience that create the context for some of the most powerful catalysts for spiritual growth. David shared, I understood that I chose to be human precisely because of its limitations, not in spite of them. Only in physical density can we experience certain types of love, certain types of overcoming challenges, and certain expressions of courage and faith. These experiences are cosmic treasures that enrich universal consciousness. It is from this understanding that many souls, even those who have reached very high levels of evolution, voluntarily choose to return to the earthly experience. Not out of karmic obligation, but out of a compassionate choice to contribute to the collective uplift of planetary consciousness. These advanced souls often take on roles as spiritual guides, teachers, healers, and innovators, catalysts for awakening in a world that desperately needs light and transformation. Elena, considering this possibility, reflected, "I was shown that I could choose to return, not because I needed to, but because I could help." There was a calling for souls who truly understood the nature of reality to incarnate during a critical period of planetary transformation. This mission attracted me not out of duty, but out of an indescribable love for humanity. Bringing together all these understandings, a radically transformed view of death emerges. Far from being the feared end or the darkness of non-being, death reveals itself as a doorway to expansion, a return to fullness, a wake-up call to dimensions far beyond who we think we are. It is a process as natural and necessary as birth. Not a tragic anomaly, but an intrinsic part of the sacred rhythm of existence. Understanding this journey completely transforms how we live. When we recognize that consciousness continues, that the bonds of love go beyond dimensions, and that every experience serves a deeper evolutionary purpose, many of the fears that limit our full expression begin to melt away. A deeper trust emerges, not based on blind belief, but on an intimate understanding of the indomitable nature of consciousness. Michael shared how this understanding transformed his life after returning from his near-death experience. "I no longer fear death because I know deep down that it doesn't exist the way we imagine. What exists is only continuous transformation, endless expansion. This certainty freed me to live much more fully, to love without holding back, to risk genuine self-expression, and to serve without fear." All the great spiritual traditions, in their core teachings, point to this same fundamental truth. We are eternal beings having a temporary human experience. Our true nature goes far beyond birth and death. The love that connects us persists beyond all transformations. Consciousness is the fundamental fabric of the universe, not an accidental byproduct of matter, but the primordial field from which all manifestation arises. When we internalize this understanding, our perspective on loss also transforms. The pain of physical separation remains real. After all, we are sensory creatures made for tangible connection. But beneath that natural pain, there can be a deeper trust that true bonds transcend the physical. Those we love are never truly lost to us. They are merely in a different expression of consciousness for a time. Thomas, who lost his wife before his own near-death experience, shared, "Finding her on the other side was the deepest recognition I have ever experienced. I understood that she had never really left, that our love existed on a plane that death could not touch. This understanding didn't take away my human sadness, but it placed it within a much larger context of eternal continuity." If you have followed this journey of understanding with us so far, you are probably wondering, how does this change the way you live now? How does this view of the continuity of consciousness transform your priorities, choices, and relationships at this moment? The most consistent answer that comes from the accounts of those who have seen beyond the veil is surprisingly simple. Live with greater presence, authenticity, and compassion. Recognize that every interaction carries eternal significance. Understand that the love you give is the only true possession you take with you. Realize that serving others is ultimately serving your own expanded nature. Sarah summed it up. It all comes down to love, not as an abstract feeling, but as a concrete choice in every moment. Who do you choose to be in the small, everyday moments? How do you respond to the suffering of others? How do you express your true self? These are the questions that really matter on the soul's journey. If this exploration has touched something deep within you, if it has awakened intuitive memories or confirmed understandings you already felt in your heart, don't let this moment pass without action. Share your reflections in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel to continue this journey of discovery in the upcoming episodes. Turn on notifications so you won't miss our future explorations of other aspects of the spiritual journey. Remember, you are not just a body having a temporary spiritual experience. You are an eternal soul, having a temporary human experience. This simple shift in perspective has the power to completely transform how you live every moment of the extraordinary journey you have chosen. Physical death is not the end of your story. It's just the turning of a page in an infinite book of possibilities. Consciousness goes on. Love endures. The journey is eternal. And perhaps the most beautiful part of all, you are never truly alone on this cosmic exploration. We are all connected on levels that go beyond conventional human understanding, joining together in the greatest adventure imaginable, the continuous evolution of consciousness across all dimensions of existence. Subscribe to the channel and give your like to get access to more stories like this. This is not a conclusion, but an invitation to deepen your own exploration. In the end, the deepest truth about the soul's journey after death cannot be fully conveyed through words. It must be intuited, felt, and gradually understood through your own expanding consciousness. And in that inner journey, you are never alone. We are all walking together, separated only by the temporary illusion of physical form, yet united eternally in the infinite dance of universal consciousness.